This is a Blaze Radio production.
We're covering Who's on Deck,
hitting the ice on the hockey scene,
and hosting a Racing Roundtable.
This is sports.
This is news.
This is everything you need to know about the future.
This is the Scoutin Session. Hello, everyone. We welcome you back this Wednesday for the 11th episode of the Scoutin Session, where we talk the up-and-coming sports stars and highlight young standout performances at the professional level. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm so glad to be back. My name is Jordan Talley, and of course, as always, I'm joined by
Noah Reed.
Once again, a little different in the studio today as we are down Ella Wolter-Sánchez. But we have Who's on Deck with Ella here via voice memo. So, Ella, take it away.
Rolling right on into the See, this is, I'm going to preface this. I think this is good that I already screwed this up. I'm going to preface, it's been a long day. I'm already 16 hours of work into the school week outside of just schoolwork. So, I'm going to hang in there for you guys. I'm going to deliver a great segment as always.
Yes.
We're going to give it to you. But first, let's hear from Ella.
Hello, everyone. For this week's Who's on Deck special, we are going to be highlighting Ryan Johnson. He is 22 years old and plays for the Los Angeles Angels. He's a 6'6" starting pitcher from Dallas, Texas, and he's a switch hitter, which we sort of talked about switch hitters and hitting on either side of the plate last episode. And he's a switch hitter, which means he can hit both on the left side and right side of the plate. It just depends on what coaches want him to do or what he feels comfortable with in that moment. But he does pitch with his right hand. Although with recent rule changes to the MLB, pitchers aren't going to be hitting, but he is on record as a switch hitter. And just for a little fun fact, used to, whatever home team you were at, you would hit abiding to their rules. For example, all of the National League teams, the pitchers would hit. And all of the American League teams had designated hitters in place for the pitcher when the team went to bat. However, due to recent rule changes, every single team in the MLB has a designated hitter, so there's no longer this differentiation between National and American League. Personally, it was one of my favorite rules. It was great to see the pitchers, come in clutch because pitchers didn't really practice batting. It was kind of just get out there and try to do something. But it was just great when a pitcher would come up and come clutch in a specific moment because it was so rare. But now that there's the rule change, pitchers do not bat. However, Ryan Johnson is a switch hitter. And just a funny little fact that relates to our last episode. So back to Ryan Johnson's story. His story is very unique and made recent MLB highlights and stories because he skipped the minor leagues and went straight to the MLB. And for those who know baseball or have been listening to us, you may have heard me talking about the fact that it takes a while to start playing in the pro leagues. Obviously, this differs from sport to sport, but initially when you get drafted, even the best prospects start in said team's farm system for a few years and then travel up to the majors and may not even be in the majors for a while, may go back up and back down, but Ryan Johnson never went to the minor leagues and just went straight to the pro leagues. And for those, he is the third MLB player in the past 2 decades to go straight to the majors and the 24th in the history of the MLB, which obviously sports have been around for a long time, but baseball is over 100 years old and only 24 players have done so. So he is very, very rare and only the third in the last 20 years. And he made it the opening day roster for the Angels after his 3.97 ERA in spring training, going 1-0 over 6 games, striking out 10 in 11 1/3 innings. And the last player to go from the draft to the majors was pitcher Garrett Crochet out of the White Sox, and that was due to the fact that the minor leagues were canceled due to COVID. During the COVID pandemic, obviously all sports had to adapt, and the way that MLB adapted is they didn't have minor leagues that year. And there was a very, very shortened season that did eventually happen, but that was the last player, and that was only really due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the last and only other Angels player to do so was Jim Abbott in 1989, so well over 30 years ago. Johnson was a second-round draft pick last year out of Dallas Baptist University, and he was taken by the Angels with their compensatory selection they received for losing Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers in free agency. In his first start, it wasn't the greatest. He allowed 4 hits and 5 runs, but he is a great overall story and a very rare one, and one we don't come across quite often. So I figured he would be a great, still very young talent to highlight. Even at 22 years old, most players aren't playing in the majors. It takes a while. Baseball's one of those sports where you can really be in it well into, your 40s, and it's very cool to see somebody this young in the pros already as a starting pitcher. So that's all for Who's on Deck this week. Back to Noah and Jordan.
Thank you so much, Ella. Glad to have you here virtually this week. But, what are your thoughts, Noah?
I mean, again, I think as we've gotten to go through all these different things for baseball, I don't know if I'll say it yet because somewhere out there my mom will be laughing her head off. I think I've started to really appreciate the sport again. Just seeing all of these great stories like Ryan, being able to really just make your mark on the sport at such a young age. I know that's kind of been the MO of this show for the last few months, but I think as we get ready to, I can't believe I'm saying it live, go into the last month of our freshman year of college, it's kind of starting to hit me, that sentimentality of, wow, look at what all these people have done. And I had someone the other day tell me, like, well, look at what you've done too. And I'm like, wow, like all of these, talented athletes, and we are just able to have a small part in highlighting their stories. I want to shout out everyone who's either viewed, reposted, or mentioned stuff that we've put out and tagged on the Scoutin Session. It really means a lot to us.
Oh, for
sure. It really, really does. So thank you guys. If you're listening in, if you're a returning listener, like, we really appreciate all the support. And I know I kind of am going off on a little rant tangent here, but I think, the world could use a little more gratitude every now and then. And so grateful to be able to do this show, grateful to highlight athletes like Ryan. And, I wish him the best of luck on the baseball season, which is crazy to say that baseball season's back. You said you were watching baseball again?
Yes, Ella, I know you're not here, but I hope you're proud of me, even though you don't like my team that I root for. But I have started watching baseball because I'm like, wow. That's like the one, baseball and basketball are like the two sports, and I'm like, I actually need to know what's going on. So I watched about half of the Dodgers game last night. I know, I'm the op in the studio here, but I watched about half the Dodgers game last night. Unfortunately, it was overshadowed by the Seattle Thunderbirds playoff game that I was also able to watch. So I was like, I gotta focus, especially if I'm talking about them on the show tomorrow. But this is just awesome, especially with Ella has talked about how hard it is to go directly from college to the MLB. Like, that's never really heard of. And it's almost similar with hockey in a sense, but just going straight from college to the pros is such a, almost not like cutthroat, but like very hard sport to break into, like baseball in the major leagues, is very impressive. So cool to see a story like that. We've seen stories of guys who spend a lot of time in the minors, and now we have a guy who went straight from college to the majors. So.
Yeah, and it's been a minute since that was done, which I think as an analytical stats guy, I love seeing records broken. I love seeing, those rare stats that, don't repeat themselves for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so to see this at such a big scale is just really cool. Also, 6'6" is insane. Like,
I know, I saw that. I was like, what?
And that's coming from someone who's 6'3".
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of people who can make me short, but when I go to a basketball game, I'm like, dang.
And a pitcher.
Yeah.
Why do you got to be 6'6" for?
I wonder if Ella was here. If Ella, if you're listening in, is being 6'6" as a pitcher an advantage or a disadvantage? Out of curiosity, or if you're listening and reply to us on social media.
Literally. All right. We ready to move on here?
Yeah, I think so. It's good to have you back
yes.
and bringing us to the ice. Things are kind of cold today, actually, so
literally.
It's a nice frozen over edition on the show.
So a little bit different, a special edition of Hit the Ice today, as we are in full WHL playoff frenzy mode. And I could be a little biased here, but playoff hockey has got to be one of the most electric atmospheres and environments to be a part of, and it's so fun. So it's good to be back after missing last week, but in the meantime, the WHL playoffs have fully started, and the first round series is approaching the halfway mark, and here's everything you need to know heading into it before we get back to the regularly scheduled Hit the Ice programming. So lots of news has hit the ice as well, so let's dive right up into it. First of all, WHL first and second All-Star teams were just announced yesterday, and 4 previous Scoutin Session prospects made the cut. This took form in none other than forward Gavin McKenna, forward Berkeley Catton, and forward Andrew Cristall, as Gavin McKenna took Eastern first team All-Star, and Berkeley and Andrew took Western first team All-Star, along with goaltender in Seattle's very own Scott Ratzlaff, who has also been highlighted on the show. The WHL hands out these awards at the end of every season, and 4 of our prospects made the first All-Star team. Not just second, but first. Getting into the playoffs, they've played about 3 games so far. Couple I think have only played 2, but that will change tonight. It's none other than Gavin McKenna, who leads skaters in points and assists, and 3 games played with 11 points. And in those, he has logged 10 assists and 1 goal, which we've been following McKenna all season, this whole show. One of the first episodes our prospects on Hit the Ice here was Gavin McKenna, and he has done anything but slow down. This is coming off a season where he ended the regular season leading the WHL in points for skaters, leading an assist, I'm pretty sure. He is like one of 3, I think the WHL just posted that, one of 3 skaters to have the most points in the first 3 playoff games, along with Brad Morrison in the 2017-2018 season, and then first overall pick in the 2023 year, Connor Bedard for the Regina Pats. So,
I mean, I'm just going to say this. If you aren't already hopped on the Gavin McKenna hype train, you better start running, because that train has already left the station and is chugging along towards a deep WHL playoff run.
Deep WHL playoff run, high NHL draft pick. He is projected first overall, and this kid still has 1 year left in the WHL before he's draft eligible even. So he's not draft eligible until 2026. So him, and there's a lot going on there. Along with the McKenna train, he was also named WHL's March Player of the Month yesterday after logging 32 points in 7 games. I mean, just let that sink in. You don't see that at any level. In fact, even at a major junior level where he's literally 17 years old. So that's kind of crazy. This is also McKenna coming off of a season where he broke the previous record for point streaks in the CHL as a whole after beating Sidney Crosby, who held the streak previously. I'm pretty sure it was 33 games. I'm pretty sure Gavin held his streak for about 34 or 35 games. Once again, being compared to Sidney Crosby, which is just crazy in itself, as one of the greatest players to ever play hockey ever, up there with Gretzky and Ovi and everyone else. So, but yeah, McKenna, March Player of the Month, 7 games played, 10 goals, and 22 assists for 32 points. Moving on. I could talk about Gavin McKenna forever, but moving on. Also in the top 10 for skater stats after 3 games played is pilot episode Hit the Ice star and Thunderbirds captain Braden Coots, who is 10th among skaters in points with 5 with 2 goals and 3 assists in 3 games played. Coots also helped call the game as number 8 Seattle dominant number 1 seed Everett in the 6-3 victory Last night over the Silver Tips, the WHL calling Coots a big-time player. They said big-time, what did they say? Something, big-time players show up for big-time plays, and Braden Coots is a big-time player. Just amazing. And also just outside the top 10 is teammate and also former Scoutin Session prospect Nathan Pilling, who we've talked about on the show. And another player that kind of flew under our radar a little bit during the regular season, but is making his mark known in the postseason, is defenseman Tyson Jugnaw. For the Portland Winterhawks, he's about 5'11". He ended the season second in points with 89, which is low-key insane for a defenseman, period. But a WHL defenseman, like, you see those numbers from players like Quinn Hughes, who is, in my opinion, the best defenseman in the NHL. I know people are going to have a lot of problems with that. Cale Makar this, Cale Makar that. I don't care. Anyways. And he is second in skaters in the playoffs with points, with 9 points in 3 games played with 2 goals and 7 assists. I mean, just having that high of a points tally for a defenseman is kind of insane. But anyways, moving on to goaltenders. Another Scott Ratzlaff also makes a noticeable appearance. He has started all 3 games in net for Seattle and ranks 3rd among goalies who have played at least 3 games. The Sabres prospect is 2-1 with Seattle, with his only loss coming in overtime. Currently, Seattle leads that series with Everett 2-1 after a big victory last night. But in 3 games played, Ratzlaff has a 2.57 goals allowed average and a .982 save percentage, only allowing 6 goals on 115 shots faced. Once again, killer stats from Ratzlaff. He's been in the WHL headlines, now making first All-Star team in the Western Conference. He's just been doing great things out there. And especially against an Everett team that's usually very offensively heavy. Like, we've highlighted Everett before. We've highlighted Landon DuPont on the show, who is also on that Everett team. And he's just able to shut those down, making big time saves. Another goaltender to keep an eye out for this playoff season is Victoria Royals netminder Johnny Hicks, another one who went under the radar for us during the regular season, along with receiving this week's WHL Goalie of the Week. And all 3 games started for Victoria. He is 3-0 with a 1 goals allowed average, a .965 save percentage, and 1 recorded playoff shutout. Little background, since Hicks has not been on the show before. This is his first season in the WHL, and he is committed to University of Tennessee for next season.
A little Tennessee Orange.
Hicks started in the BCHL this season and was only called up to Victoria in January, and since has had an impressive 10-4-1 record. And on the smaller end for what you'd expect him to be, he stands at about a 5'11" when all top 7 goaltenders in the WHL playoffs right now are over 6 foot. So big, small but mighty in net. So 3 teams in the form of Calgary, wrapping this up, 3 teams in the form of Calgary Hitmen, Lethbridge Hurricanes, and the Victoria Royals have the ability to sweep their series tonight. And the Spokane Chiefs are looking forward to the sweep as they are currently undefeated with 1 less game played, currently sitting at 2-0, but they take on the Vancouver Giants tonight. I'm pretty sure in Vancouver for that Game 3. So lots to look forward to. This definitely won't be the last time you'll be hearing about the WHL playoffs for this season, but yeah.
Dang. That, I mean, obviously a lot of information to digest there for all of the listeners, but I think what helps is all the names you talked about, except for the exception of one, with that being Hicks. These are all guys we've talked about.
Yep.
These are all guys we've highlighted. These are all guys who, at such a young age, have already put their name on the map on the hockey scene. And I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add just in general, but the youth movement in hockey is real. And I'm excited because I feel like I've learned a lot from you. And if I'm learning, I can only imagine what the listeners are learning. My
final thing before there's a possibility that, we'll have our second round matchups set by next week is watch out for Gavin McKenna. That's about it. That's about all you can get out of this WHL season with the Medicine Hat run. And yeah, Medicine Hat, very, very deep playoff run. But we got to move on to Noah, the Racing Roundtable. What do you got for us?
Yeah, this week's driver, Logan Julien, hails from, get this one is a $5 word, been waiting to use that phrase for a long time, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, racing Wing 10 sprint cars for Team 73 and Gibbsville Cheese.
Sounds
in 20...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sounds like a Washington name to me.
I'm honestly surprised I was able to deliver that. I don't know. That one scared me putting it in. I was like, oh gosh, how do you say that? But anywho, in 2024, Logan drove his family-owned number 85J machine to a 8th place finish in the IRA Outlaw Sprint Series as a rookie. It's a regional series with many of its drivers coming out of Wisconsin and Northern Illinois. And just kind of rattle off his stats. In 18 features, Logan put together 1 top 5 with 7 top 10s. That performance earned him a nod on the 2024 National Sprint Car Rookie of the Year awards list that has yet to be announced. But that's a very impressive feat for, being your rookie season, getting 8th, but also doing it on just a regional level. And I was very, very surprised kind of getting to dig into some of these stats in the background. But Logan had a very special announcement, and he's going to actually be transitioning. Well, he already transitioned, technically speaking, but to Team 73, and that was in last November. He expressed his excitement through the media. Keep in mind, guys, this is the same car, the 73 machine, that won the 2024 IRA Championship with Scotty Thiel at the helm. So, in a press release, Logan said, quote, "The fact that Oz, Fran, Gibbsville, and the whole 73 team are putting their faith in me for the 2025 season, I think says a lot of what our family operation accomplished this past year. To be able to drive for a team that has so much history and success here in the Midwest is amazing, and I think it'll be a great fit for myself and my family." So 2 things stuck out to me in that quote. First of all, he did that as a family-owned operation, which I think sometimes I can kind of forget to mention here just because I've become so used to being around these family-owned operations. But I did an interview with an announcer from California. His name is Stephen Blakesley. We call him the encyclopedia of racing knowledge. And he put this in the best way that you could possibly put it, is these guys who are racing week in and week out at these local racetracks, they already have a week job. They already have a 9 to 5. Their racing is just a 5 to 10, 5 to midnight, 5 to 2 a.m., whatever long it takes to get that car ready for you, the race fan. And so it's really cool to be able to see when these family teams are able to have success and build into the dynasties that you know and love. And the second is just Midwest. I know that we've shouted out a lot of East Coast. We've shouted a lot of West Coast out. The Midwest is a very healthy, very diverse racing region.
Love the Midwest.
Yeah, we're going to hype it up today. And so going back to Logan, despite lacking a win in the 410s last season, he's no stranger to winning. He claimed numerous micro sprint, junior sprint, and karting titles with nearly 100 career feature wins across these classes. Plus, he even took home Rookie of the Year honors in the 2023 MSA 360 Sprints division. Now, he did start off 2025 already in Oklahoma for the annual Tulsa Shootout, where, get this, 144 races took place in one day out of 389 from Chili Bowl week. And I can see that you kind of highlighted it there. Do you have something that you want to add?
Well, how old is this kid?
Oh, shoot. I completely forgot to add that to our notes. I apologize.
No,
he
you're
is
good.
16 years old.
16
years old.
Okay,
yes.
got it. I was just trying to, I was like, how old is this kid? But yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And like you said, I mean, cool. I feel like this kind of racing just displays the passion for motorsport. Like you said, these guys already have 9 to 5 jobs, and they're coming to the track. They're getting these cars ready. They're working tirelessly to get these cars ready, just for the passion of it. Passion of the, not the game, but passion at the track. Passion for the need for speed, per se. But yeah, I mean, it just shows there's so much, work to be put into it, and it gets appreciated like that.
Yeah, and there's no shortage of work in Chili Bowl week. He finished third in Fuel Tech Race 42 and second in Fuel Tech Race 108 behind Cohen McDaniel. Then in his winged A-Class B feature, he held off Frank Flood and KJ Snow for a shot at the last chance qualifier race. He had an impressive run, 14th to 9th by the end of the race. Unfortunately, though, he missed the transfer into the A main by just one spot. And so our fast fact of the week is going to be all about A mains, the Chili Bowl, 389 races. It's a lot, and I know you guys are thinking, what in the heck is happening in dirt racing? Well, let me explain the way things work, and I'll help you digest the alphabet soup. So, on the dirt scene, there's usually more entries trying to make the race than there is space on the track. Thus, the top drivers have to lock themselves into the coveted A main or the feature event. And so it pays the most, and you score the best points. So, essentially, you start off with qualifying, you work your way up. Drivers, will get through their qualifying groups, and, depending on the number of cars you'll have, you could have C mains, E mains. It could go all the way down. The Chili Bowl goes, I don't even know, so far down. I should have looked at that up before the start of the show, but I'll just give you this example. Drivers starting in the C main have the opportunity to race, let's say, 10 laps. The top 2 drivers from the C main would qualify for the B main. The B main would probably be 10 to 12 laps. And then, again, top 2 drivers who in that race, they move on to the A main. So that's kind of how the alphabet soup works. A, B, C, D.
Like a shootout qualifying kind of situation.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's going to do it for our fast fact of this week. Now, as for Logan, he ended that Tulsa trip ranked 25th out of 404 entries for the winged A-class division. He said his plan was to run around 10 sprint car events prior to this year's IRA season opener at the 34 Raceway this weekend, actually, April 4th and 5th. And those plans actually included 4 starts in the World of Outlaws, where he made his debut. Actually sits 23rd in points, which is pretty stout for only making 4 points. I know we're running out of time here, and so I just want to say that Logan and Team 73 are ready to tackle a 17-race season on the RRA circuit. So make sure to follow him on Instagram, Facebook, content out there, impressive, and TikTok for all the latest updates from the driver and Team 73. That'll do it from me.
All right. Well, what a action-packed and full show we had today. Thank you for listening to today's edition of the Scoutin Session. My name is Jordan Talley, alongside
Noah Reed
with Ella Wolter-Sánchez, reporting from outside of the studio. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.